Hello everyone, welcome back to the video. So in today's video we are going to go through something that is slightly different from what you have learned previously. Today we're going to talk about carbon-based fuels. Now we all know the significance of fuels in our daily life, yeah? You come to college by cars, you go home by cars, you go elsewhere by bus, you go to another country by aeroplane and all. So all of these vehicles actually need fuels to be operated, yeah. Therefore carbon-based fuels is really important to us. So today we're going to look at the two main types of carbon-based fuels that we can commonly find. They are number one, the fossil fuel, and the second one would be known as the biomass fuel, or sometimes in short we call them as biofuel, which is the more recently used fuel actually. This picture shows you how fossil fuels are being formed. Now, as the word fossil implies, it implies that it comes from the dead organisms many years ago. So it will first start by the dead organisms here, okay? So over some time, they actually get trapped underneath rocks and sand and soil, yeah? And then over time there will be anaerobic breakdown of such dead organisms as well. So there will be bacteria in there and they will actually break down the organisms, but without oxygen. So that's why we call them as anaerobic respiration. So over millions of years, all of these products will then eventually become what we call as a fossil fuel today. So the three main types of fossil fuels that we commonly find will be oil. We sometimes call them as crude oil. Then we also have natural gas. And of course, there will be coal as well, crude oil. Well, we humans have been using fossil fuels as the main fuel for all our transportations for so many years already. But I'm sure that we also know that the usage of fossil fuels brings its own advantages and disadvantages. So let's talk about these advantages first. I'm sure this is not something strange to you. When we use fossil fuels in excess, what are some of the bad effects that we brought about by them? Well, number one, you have to know that all of these fossil fuels actually contain nitrogen. So when these fossil fuels undergo combustion, they will actually produce products called oxides of nitrogen. Well, unfortunately, when oxides of nitrogen are being produced, they actually contribute to different kinds of pollutions in the atmosphere, and they include the acid rain and also photochemical smog. Then we have also seen earlier on that when the carbon-based fuels undergo combustion, sometimes the combustion may not be a complete one due to the absence of oxygen, insufficiency of oxygen. Therefore, when this happens, another side product known as soot will be produced. These soot particles are actually solid, and when we humans inhale them into our respiratory system, they are going to cause a lot of respiratory problems, health problems to us. Thirdly, two types of the fossil fuels, which are coal and crude oil, would contain sulfur as one of their atoms. So when they undergo combustion, they could also produce sulfur dioxide as a side products. And I'm sure you're aware that sulfur dioxide could also lead to acid rain in our atmosphere. Now I guess now you know why our acid rain phenomenon is so common over here. Right, you can see the various disadvantages that are brought about by the fossil fuels, but why do you think we humans are still using it? Like, as our main source of fuel. Why is it so? Because surely there are advantages. Okay, and the advantages of using the fossil fuel is really simple. It's mainly because there are large reserves of fossil fuels elsewhere, everywhere, and it is actually relatively cheap to extract them from the earth if you were to compare to the usage of other sources of fuels. So this is why we human until today we are still using fossil fuels. We now come to biofuel, biomass fuel. So this type of fuel comes from many sources. It could come from animal waste like animal fats. It could also come from the side products of plants, the metabolic side products of plants, and plants waste, sewage. So all of this are actually possible raw materials to become the biofuel. So what happens is all of these raw materials will go through specialized chemical processes. There are so many types of chemical processes that they could go through. Just to name a few, it could be fermentation, it could also be esterification or anaerobic digestion, so on and so forth. So when they go through specialized chemical processes, they then form biofuel. Examples of biofuel could include biogas, biodiesel, and even ethanol. Now, what do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of the biofuels? Well, in this case, I would like to start with the advantages because you would know that it's actually the opposite compared to the disadvantages of fossil fuels. First of all, we all know that biofuels are actually renewable. What this means is if the biofuels have been used up, we could always produce more and more of these biofuels. Unlike the fossil fuels, which are non-renewable, because once we actually finish the reserves of the fossil fuels, we'll probably have to wait for millions of years ago before we could have another batch of the fossil fuels. Well, the second reason why biofuel is so good is because they are carbon neutral, mainly because the carbon dioxide that these fuels are going to release into the atmosphere was absorbed from the air by the living plant matter not long ago. In other words, they will not contribute to excessive carbon dioxide in the air, which could lead to enhanced greenhouse effect. And thirdly, also because the usage of biofuels would actually emit lesser harmful air pollutants if you were to compare it to the pollutants that are released from the combustion of fossil fuels. Well, it seems like the biofuels are very good, isn't it? Then why aren't we all switching our fossil fuel to all biofuels? Why are we still stuck with the fossil fuel? Because the biofuels brings its own disadvantages as well. And one of them is because in order to produce biofuels, we are actually using the non-renewable fossil fuels to produce the biofuels. And also mainly of economic reasons, that is, the production of such biofuels are actually quite expensive. So that's why most of the people out there are still, they still rather use fossil fuels because they are actually slightly cheaper. Now here I'm going to share with you the products that could be produced when the fossil fuels undergo combustion. Remember me telling you just now that sometimes combustion could be complete combustion or sometimes it could be incomplete combustion. So when the fuel undergoes a complete combustion, that means there is a lot of oxygen for all the fuels to be broken down and release a lot of heat energy. And when this happens, the products here produced would be carbon dioxide and water. So this is not really harmful to us. But if the fossil fuel undergoes incomplete combustion, then two different products could be formed. Sometimes it would produce carbon monoxide and water. Some other times it will produce soot, which is solid, and water. So you are expected to actually know how to write the equation given any fuel. Given any fuel, you should be able to tell us, to write for us the complete combustion or the incomplete combustion of such fuel. You just got to remember one thing: whenever the word complete combustion is there, you know that the products must be carbon dioxide and water already. Now we are going to practice to write the equation of the complete combustion of cyclohexane C6H12. Remember, I just said it is complete combustion. The products must be CO2 and water. So let me just write it first. Okay, liquid. Now, complete combustion must happen in the presence of oxygen. So don't forget to include oxygen. Gas, producing CO2 and water. Now, balancing time. There are actually orders to follow when you balance. Now remember, the very first thing that we balance is always carbon. The 6 carbons here, therefore I'm going to write a 6 in front. As simple as that. After you have balanced your C, the second thing to balance would be your H. On your left, there are 12 hydrogens. So, to make it to 12, we put a 6 here again. Okay? And lastly, to finish up the balancing, we balance up oxygen. So, oxygen here would be 12 plus 6, a total of 18 oxygen here. So, we're going to write the 9 here. Done. Okay? This is as simple as it. Remember the order of how you balance it. Now, I would like you to try to write on your own the incomplete combustion of cyclohexane. The two different ones, one producing carbon monoxide and another one producing soot. Can you please try on your own? Everyone, I hope you got this answer. Okay, well, whether it is complete or incomplete, people, remember oxygen is a must for you to add on. Even if they only produce soot, it does not mean that there is no oxygen, okay? Oxygen must be present for any forms of combustion. Just remember this rule. Lastly, before we end the video, I would like you to give you a mini assignment. That is, please go and read up on how carbon monoxide and soot could actually impact our life, how they could actually affect us, our health, so on. Thank you.